Hello, welcome to Zero Work Ethic. Today I want to talk about what I think is necessary to produce quality content.
I don't have a dollar, but do I make sense? And many by a crooked scholar, so I tend to think that my train of thought is off the rails.
Quick life update, I jacked up my knee. I was on my bike and I took a corner at the bottom of a hill just a little too quickly, and my bike slid out from underneath me and I twisted my knee, and luckily nothing was torn or broken, but I did really strain my MCL. So I've been bound to a chair for the last couple days, but it did give me the time to think about this topic and this video. Before I actually jump into gear and tools and things like that, I need to talk about my history in photography. When I started out doing photography, I had nothing but the camera. I had no tripod, no flash, no bounce, nothing but my creative eye and the camera, and it was a Nikon D50 or something like that. It was very old and it was showing its age after a certain amount of time, but it was still a really strong creative tool for me, and I was able to, it started me off down a path of learning how to use creative solutions in my art. I remember the first headshot I ever took. I went into a old church, and this church was completely dark inside, and it had these big windows that had these like bay doors on them that I could open up and just let a little bit of light in. And I brought in my subject and I used that as my light, and I yielded this image. I'm very proud of this image. I was so proud of it at the time. I can see some editing flaws myself personally now, but at the time it was the best thing I had ever taken, and I was very proud of the solution that I had come up with because I had no light. As I continued to do photography, I decided that I wanted to gain a little bit more control over light, and I started experimenting around my house with different lamps and whatnot to use for photography. This headshot of my father was taken with the octopus lamp behind me shown through a white bed sheet, and I was very proud of this one because I had learned some new skills about how to shape light. As time continued forward, I decided to actually purchase lights that were designed for video and photo work. So I purchased these two LED panels and two light stands, and that was it. And I was like, all right, I'm ready to shoot. But I had no kind of diffusion. I had no modifiers for the lights. I had no idea how to even begin down that road. So I had to come up with a solution really quickly because I had just signed on to a project where I was going to be taking a lot of headshots and they needed to look good. This picture was taken with both of my LED panels bounced off a sheet of paper. I went to Target and I bought a large piece of poster paper. I hung it from one of my light stands really precariously, and then on one light stand was one light, and then on I did actually get a tripod, so the other light was on the tripod, and I shined them both into it, bounced off, and this is the image that I got. Again, at the time, I was so very proud of this picture, and I still am. I'm still proud of all of these pictures, but I would not go back to the tools that I had to use to make them. There is a large mentality online that you do not need a lot of tools to create, and that's true. I'm not denying that fact. There's a lot of YouTubers out there who talk about that initial dive into photography. There's no video describing the next step. It's always beginner's guide. Here's how to use exposure. Here's how to use your aperture. What do these things do? ISO. Cool. What comes next? I feel as though I'm in that zone, so that's what this video is talking about. At the same time, the phrase that comes to my mind is a poor craftsman blames his tools. I think that's the mentality that people are getting into, right? It's like you can't justify getting something for you. You can't justify getting a new tool if your tools are already just as good. But that's true when it's not, because your tools should never be a hindrance. Photography should be fun. It shouldn't be hard. At the time, when I was taking those photos, the creative solutions that I was finding were fun. It was fun to discover these new aspects of photography, to truly understand how ISO works, to truly understand what the aperture will do to your subject, right, in terms of focus, figuring out things about light and how to shape it and how to use it. I've reached a point where that's no longer fun. I know how to do that, and the fun part of photography should be the craft and how I am staging a photo, how am I posing a subject, and how am I using the light that I have available to me. I would not go back to those tools because they would hinder me, they wouldn't help me. I was and I am still proud of my DIY solutions and the photos that I took with them, but I would not go back to them. They are fundamentally limiting. You will not be able to create as high quality content as some other people when you're using those kinds of DIY solutions. It's just a fact. If you're still struggling to control light, if you're still struggling to get good image quality, if you're still struggling to get good audio quality, if it's still a creative solution, then you're limiting yourself. If you find yourself in that boat, this video is for you. So the 3 questions I've devised to ask yourself when you're trying to decide if you really need to get a new tool are: what do you want to create? What tools do you have? Realistically, can you use those tools to create something you are proud of? The answers to these questions will change over time as you become more ambitious, as you become more learned, as you start to apply new things. So down the road, maybe I won't be using these light panels anymore because there's not enough control. But for now, this is perfect. I have an umbrella and I've got my 2 light panels, and that is working great for me. But these are the questions you need to ask yourself for when you're trying to produce content. So what do you actually need to produce quality content? I'm going to be speaking about my own personal experience and the tools that I'm using because I feel like my photos and my video have reached a nice point of quality. And I think these tools will be really useful for anyone who is trying to produce good quality content. So here's the tech that I use. I'm shooting on the Fuji X-T3. This camera is really good. At the time I paid about $1,500 for it, but you do not need this camera in particular. All you need in a camera is 1080p video and a hot shoe mount. 1080p is going to be good enough for video. Anybody who's consuming video specifically on YouTube is probably watching on their phone or on their laptop or computer, and they're not gonna really care about 1080p video because that looks good enough. A hot shoe mount will allow you to trigger flash, and I believe some kind of off-camera flash is essential for creating good photos. For my lighting solution, I've got 2 light panels, each at $25. I've got 2 light stands, which came in a pack at $27. I've got a shoot-through umbrella that came in at $10. For photography, I've got the newer TT560, which is a speed light, which was $30. And I've got the newer SK300, which I've got it at a discount price, but it's now $110. I also have a 24-inch reflector. These are all tools that I'm sure other YouTubers have talked about, so let me get some other things in there that you need that I didn't know you needed that'll help you out. To mount my 2 LED panels, I have a dual flash bracket, which allows me to mount both panels onto one light stand, and that was $8. And so that I can utilize my shoot-through umbrella, I've got a light stand bracket for them, which has a slot for the umbrella. The other thing is that these 2 lights can be powered via a battery or via a DC input of about 12 volts. I was powering them from battery, but that was infuriating me because I couldn't record for long periods of time without them dying. So I found 2 12-volt DC adapters and plugged them in. Problem was that the lines were not long enough and I couldn't raise them up without having them dangle below. So I purchased 2 DC power extension cables. They're about 10 feet long and they have done wonders, and those were both about $9. To trigger my flash, I had to purchase a wireless trigger. I purchased the newer RT16 trigger, which was $15. All of that adds up to $281, so around $300. So that seems like a lot to invest up front, but keep in mind that but keep in mind that I invested in these things over the course of my photography career, of about 7 years. I started purchasing all these things gradually back in high school, and I asked for them in gifts, and I saved money from Christmas and my birthday, and sometimes entire paychecks went to purchasing one thing, but it was so worth it because I have built up tools that allow me to create really good quality content. So start where you can. Just one solid light and modifier can revolutionize your process. The next thing I need to update is my tripod. This tripod that I'm shooting on is so bad that when I press record, the camera shakes for about 15 seconds after I start recording. So I have to wait to start speaking and to start actually producing the content because the camera is shaking. It's also just really not that sturdy. Do not skimp out on it. Just do not skimp out. I purchased this tripod off of Amazon because it was the cheapest one available and I just wanted another tripod, and it sucks. It is the worst tripod I have ever had the displeasure of putting my hands on. It is terrible. Do not skimp out on a tripod. Get ready to spend around $60 on a tripod that'll be sturdy, that'll be able to give you a large range of height and versatility. Audio is so huge. I'm recording on a condenser mic that's plugged into an audio interface that's plugged into my computer. That seems really complicated, and it kind of is, but I've learned a lot about audio over the years as well as video and photography, and this solution works for me really well because I can EQ it right in the program that I'm using, and then I can cut it up and I can do whatever I need to, and it works a lot better for me. I have more control, I can see what I'm recording, it works. But you can spend around $80 on a really nice Tascam recorder, and it's going to give you so much better audio quality than what's going to be on your onboard mic. And that's something that really kills a lot of videos for me, is when the audio doesn't sound good. It's going to make me want to go away from that video rather than stay and listen to the person talk. Finally, I'm sure every video on the face of YouTube has referenced this, but a good quality lens is really, really important. And you don't really need to shell out for a good quality lens. The one I would recommend the most is this one right here. So it's on an adapter. Let me get it off here. But this is a vintage lens. This is the Olympus Zuiko 28mm f2.8. I got this lens for about $50. This is one of the best lenses I have ever used in my life. It has wide aperture, a really, really nice focal length, and it renders color really nicely, and it's extremely sharp, even wide open. I love this lens. It shot some of those headshots that you just saw earlier. So you get this lens for about $50, an adapter for about $15 to $20. You're golden. I might just do a full review of this lens at another point in time. I love this lens. So adding up the tripod, the audio, and a good lens like that brings your total up to around $500. Again, that seems like a lot to shell out, but it's a really, really important investment, and you don't need to buy it all at once. I purchased these upgrades as time went on over the course of 7 years. All right, I think I've preached enough. That's going to be it for this video, I think. As always, my name is Christian Stevenson. This is Zero Work Ethic. Thanks for watching. Don't work too hard.